Hello everyone, welcome once more, and today we'll be working on conditionals. So previously we talked on booleans, and it was a quite crucial topic to talk on before getting into conditionals. Another conditionals we'll be working first with if-else statements and then if-else expressions. So we're working with the number n here again, and this time we're not going to go into greater than or less than equal to 10. We're going to check with if it's positive or negative. So you know that integers are whole numbers, right? With positive or negative, and examples of them are -2, 288, -6,789, 0, and so on. Okay, so we want to do something with number if it's positive and do something else if it's negative. Is that okay? So how we're going to be doing it is with Rust, you are going to just do exactly what I did. We'll do something with a number if it is negative, and the way to describe that in Rust is using if. Now we don't just use if. There's a syntax for if, and if comes with the condition in brackets. So if the condition in the brackets here is true, then whatever we write in this body, in these braces, becomes evaluated. And then we can extend if by creating an else, where if the condition in these brackets is not true, that is the else part, then whatever is in these brackets becomes evaluated. So if the number is positive, let's increase it by 1. If it's negative, let's increase it by 4. So with that, we make a statement like if n. How do we know that a number is positive and negative? If it's negative, it's less than 0. If it's positive, it's greater than or equal to 0. So let's work on the side for positive instead. So if it is greater than or equal to 0, if n is greater than or equal to 0, let's say n should be equal to n plus 1. And we have one tiny error here. I'll give you 5 seconds to guess. Yes, you probably got it right or wrong. But the problem is we are trying to modify a variable which is not mutable. So we need to put let mut n, and then we can safely do this. So when we say n is mutable, we can easily modify it. If n is greater than or equal to 0, n should be equal to n plus 1. Another thing we are noticing here is that this is a long method of doing this. We could just say n plus equals 1, right? Makes the whole thing way easier. And then else, let's say n equals to n plus 4. Sorry about that. Or we could just say n plus equals 4, right? Then after that, what we can just do is print the value of n to see the result of whatever that came out to be. So let's break this down a bit. If n is greater than 0, we're going to increase the value of n by 1. If n is not greater than or equal to 0, we're going to increase by 4. So this simply means if we have any positive number pass through this expression, or if it passes through this if statement, then it should increase the value of that number by 1. Else, let's increase it by 4. On printing this, we expect to see the value 11 is printed to us. Is that okay? Now let's look at something interesting. The reason why we have these brackets here is to show you the part of the statement that we have in Rust, because this is the statement we are making. Look at this. Rust says unnecessary parentheses around the if condition. So they said we don't need to put this because Rust actually doesn't need to have any parentheses around expression. So we could just say if n is greater than 0, and running our program, we're not going to have any complaints from fancy Rust, right? Now let's make this a negative number and see what happens. -2. So we know that -2 plus 4 should give us 2. So I'm running this, my result here is 2, right? Let's change this to 4 and let's run again. Our result is 0. Let's change this to -10 and let's run again. Our result should be -6. Perfect. So that's it. We've just looked a bit at the if statements in Rust. So let's look at it again. If this statement here is true, this body from here to here is executed. If it is not true, this is executed. Now don't get me wrong, this program could work even if we don't have the else part. So the if can exist without the else. On running this, we see that nothing changes with n because it doesn't have any else part on it, and so we'll still get -10 printed as it was initially. However, else cannot exist without an if, because you can't be saying else I'm going to beat you without someone knowing why you're beating them, right? So what expression to evaluate when an if condition evaluates to false? This can only happen if we have an if statement produced first. So we're going to go back to the original state of our program. We're going to take it in. Now let's assign a value to n based on, or let's create another variable. Let m be nothing. Let's just leave m alone and let's give it type I32. Okay, so we'll be looking now at if expressions, and with if expressions or with conditional expressions, what we are doing is we are trying to create some expression that will produce a result based on the values or based on the conditions that we have, based on the statements that we have, the result of the statements. So something like let m I32, we could say m equals if n is greater than or equal to 0, do something. Let's say we should give the value of m to 100, else we should give the value of m to -500, right? And the fancy parentheses we keep putting, let's get them off. So this is an example of an expression, while this is a statement. Now what we are saying is this is actually just one value, because we see that the value 100, we just state it here as what is going to be assigned to m if this statement here is true, while -500 is going to be assigned to m if this is not true. So to shorten it so it doesn't look so scary, we are saying in simple words, the value of m should be 100 if n is positive, else it should be -500. So after that, we can print the value of m and see that from my expectation, just end this here with, from my expectation, the value of m should be -500. So let's run that. Unexpected token. Something I'm missing. Yes. Okay. So we see that the value of m turns to be -500 because n is less than 10. So let's take a quick pause. So I believe that I may have made a bit of a mistake while explaining. Let's be clear on this. This section, where we have done something based on the result of a statement, we call this conditional statements, while these where we have assigned some value based on the result of an expression, we call this, or still the result of a statement, we call this a conditional expression. Because what happens is a value is going to be assigned to something, while in this there's just going to be some processes or some process executed. So now that we have that out of the way, let's explore again into some extra features with if else. Now, working with if else, there is something we could do. If n is greater than or equal to 0, we know that n is positive, right? Let's get the parentheses off. We could now want to do something with n. So now that we know that n is positive, And there's something that we may want to do, or let's work with a different variable. Let k be equal to 2. We may not want to do something with k, knowing that k is positive, right? And that could now be to see what to do if k is even, right? And how do we know if a number is even? If we divide a number by 2 and don't have any remainder. So we're just going to have if k mod 2 equals 0, then let's print Yahoo. Africans will understand what this means. Okay, so what are we saying here? This is the nested if statement, and we could have other if statements in this for as long as we want. Ross just keeps going into it. So what we are doing is, if this is true, then all of this here should be evaluated. If this is true, then this here should be evaluated. If it is not, then we're just going to go on. So let's just make a bit of an else statement here and say print line voila. Okay, it doesn't mean anything. Please don't ask me what it means. So let's print that out and see. The previous statement we had was not a print line. Our result we have here is Yahoo, as expected, because k is 2 and 2 divided by 2 does not give us any remainder. So I may have introduced a new operator here without even noticing. Modulus, spelled modulus, short is mod. So what it does is it divides k by 2 and then it gets the remainder, and that is the mod. So if we have any remainder, if the remainder that we have from dividing k by 2, if it is not 0, right, it means that it is not even, because all even numbers are divisible by 2 without a remainder. I watched a movie where someone said divisible by 2 and he was proven wrong. Okay, so now that we have seen that, we can see that with if statements, we don't end at just one block. We could go further by having nested if statements. And even in an else statement, we could say if k is greater than 10, let's say print line still going, and this with something. Okay, so let's change the value of k here to be something odd, 11. And we see that if k is greater than 0, it's greater than 0, so this is going to be evaluated. If k mod 2 is equal to 0, 11 divided by 2 is 5.5, that's 5, remainder 1, so 1 is not equal to 0. This is going to be evaluated. So we get here and we see that it's going to print voila, and then it checks if k is greater than 10, then let's print still going. Voila, still going, meaning that we can have a nested if in an else statement. All we just need to remember is you cannot have an else without an if, but you can have a good number of ifs regardless of what you're doing. All is that they have to be correct, and you can have ifs in ifs, you can have ifs in elses, but you can't have elses in else. It doesn't work that way. Just know the first thing you need to have for conditional statements is an if statement. For an if, you don't start with an else. So with that, we're going to wrap this up and we're going to consider this done, and there are going to be further exercises we're going to be using this. So see you in the next videos, guys. We'll be talking on loops. Hope to see you then. Thank you very much.